So the day that I figured out I was a fraud as an educator, the message was delivered via SEPTA-bus. I'm walking down Walnut Street towards the 18th Street bus stop, going to my next meeting, running over the to-do list in my head, blanking everything around me out, because of course you pay no attention when you're busy. And all of a sudden, I hear, "Yo, yo, Miss Stacy. Yo, yo, Miss Stacy, Miss Stacy," which is only the call from a former student. And as I proceeded to look around me trying to figure out where this sound was, I noticed a SEPTA bus had pulled up at the 18th Street stop, and off bounds this absolutely beautiful vision, a tall, African-American, 6-foot-plus man-child, screaming my name, and he was my former student, Michael. Our relationship went back 10 years prior when I was running a youth center not far from here in the midst of North Philly. And so he greets me with hugs and kisses that I can still feel today, excitement in his voice because he sees his caring adult, and he proceeds to tell me everything he's done in the past 10 years. Literally. I, however, kind of begin to reflect back to where our story left off. So what I remember is a young man who was on the verge of dropping out. He would come to the center every single day, play a very complicated math game, but would never go to school. He had an aspiration to become a game developer, but really had no idea or path of how to get there. He was a young man that was living in such horrible conditions of poverty. He wasn't poor, he was po. He couldn't even afford the O and the R. And this young man just exuded brilliance. And every day I'd watch him play this math game, really curious about, clearly this kid is brilliant, but yet he doesn't like school. So our relationship began there. So he and I together, we figured out how to get him motivated. He ended up graduating high school. He enrolled in community college in a program that ultimately was designed to get him to a 4-year university to his career of game development. And so in my mind, our story ended in success. His story began there. But as I pulled myself out of my reverie and I began really listening to him, as he was telling me every single thing he's done, I realized that's not what happened. This young man actually was still living in poverty. He had never made it out of community college. He got stuck in developmental courses, as many of our students do. He never stepped foot on the 4-year campus, and he absolutely never got to the career. Matter of fact, he was in the same exact job I helped him get 10 years prior. That clearly was never designed to be a family-sustaining gig. So while he was excited to see his caring adult that could help him figure out how to get out of developmental and into his college degree, I, however, fell into the pit of despair. I became extremely depressed. I began asking the question, what happened? Now, I know the school district had some problems, but really? Is this what we're doing to our children? Are we believing that they've actually advanced in ways and spaces and claimed a future that they never achieve? How am I participating in this? And have I helped sell them the lie? So that led me to an obsession. And I decided that I really needed to understand the answer. I need to understand the question why. I needed to know, was it about not having a fair funding formula? Was it about bad teachers, bad principals, not having after-school programs? Was it that the kids couldn't learn? What was it? And so I went on a quest. And I decided personally I was going to try and answer the why. And not for myself, but for Michael. Because I couldn't, in all good conscience, continue to call myself an educator and not become better at what I did. And so I began asking that question. So, here's what I found out. I first decided I really needed to understand the depth of the issue first before I went off and decided this is how we should fix it. Because, many of us have decided how public education should be fixed without really understanding the depth of the problem. So this particular picture actually is a picture of myself with a group of student leaders I had the privilege to serve with. And these young people, I want you to imagine them as Philadelphia's 9th grade class. And so here's what I found out. I found out, first of all, this young lady actually represents 48% of our third graders that read on grade level. But that leaves 52% of our third graders that are not. Research tells us that if young people are not reading on grade level by third grade, their probability of dropping out raises exponentially. This young man actually represents the 65% of young people that will earn a high school degree. That's a good thing. However, there are 35% of our 9th grade class that never get that degree. Then you have this young man. He actually represents 32% of the same 9th grade class that will matriculate into college. Most people will say that's great. But in a knowledge economy, of which we are, and 65% of the jobs require a degree, we have left behind more than half of an entering 9th grade class. And this young person represents, out of that 32%, only 10% of young people will earn a 4-year degree. So essentially, if you think about this group, and this is a group who I can call by name, I know almost 90% of them are not going to get a college degree, which means they have no access to the knowledge economy. Which means what? We condemn them to a life of poverty. So the why and the depression became bigger. I was like, wow, that just feels so big. But Michael is still waiting. So I got to keep asking the question, why? So in 2013, my obsession led me here. And I did something I said professionally I would never, ever, ever do. I had made it a professional goal to never work for the school district of Philadelphia. I was like, no way, man. But along comes Dr. William Haidt, an iconic educator, full of charisma, very graceful, intelligent, committed, visionary. And he happened to catch me at a meeting one day and said, I have a feeling you might be helpful. And I was like, nah, man, not me. But I decided in that moment, as the adult, we can't all keep saying no. I can't be critical if I'm not willing to do something about it. So I left an organization I loved with colleagues who were dear, who did awesome work with kids, and said, I'm going in. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find the person to blame. I'm going to figure it out, whether it's fair funding formula or charters versus public, or whether or not the kids really can't read. And so I went on a quest, and I said, you know what? I am going to figure it out because, I still have thousands of Michaels who are waiting. But here's what I found out. First of all, I found out two things. And the first, you have to start with a context about what a problem is. So the FSG Forum, in partnership with Aspen Institute, actually defines a problem in 3 ways. And this is extremely important. The first, you can have a simple problem, right? There's a problem, there's an answer, it's very clear, you pair them together, boom, do you move on, done. The second is a complicated problem. And the complicated problem actually has multiple inputs. There's a problem, you can see it. There's an obvious solution. It might take a little bit to get there, takes a little bit of time. You have to build forward. But the reality of it is you can kind of see the light at the end of the day. But a complex problem has multiple inputs, multiple problems, and when you change this, then this over here changes. You change this, then this over here changes. And so even though we talk about in the media, in our public narrative, that public education, specifically in this city, it seems as if there's one or two problems. The reality is it's complex. It's interconnected. It is historical. It is deep. And it is not obvious about what the way forward is. So even though I was looking for the back room and the person that I could blame, like the Oz, like there was something behind that door, the reality is I found it was a lot more complicated than what the public narrative talked about. Public education is a really hot topic in this city. And we are constantly, very negatively, talking about our school system as if it is the end of the world. We hear none of the goodness, which is the second thing I found. I found pockets of brilliance happening with young people and educators all over this city. It may not have looked traditional. Yeah, that's worth clapping. It may not have looked traditional, but it's brilliant and engaging and forward-moving for those young people. I found at McMichael Elementary School in West Philly, one of the worst schools in the city, a beautiful program called Stepping Stone Academy, where they take fourth graders who are academically talented, pair them with Drexel mathematicians, and they teach them math. I saw a fourth grader solve a college-level math problem in an hour, and she was like, "Give me more." Or you can go over at Chester Arthur Elementary, where Friends of groups are popping up all over the city. These are citizens who don't even have kids in public school, and they are beginning to work in collaboration with their principals, building playgrounds, raising money, volunteering, teaching kids to read, providing classroom support. They don't sit on the sidelines. Or we can talk about Youth Build Charter, which is right down the street. That is an oasis. There is an oasis. When you walk in that building, that school serves the 35% who dropped out. And when you walk in, the energy you feel, the love you feel is indescribable. And these were the kids that no one wanted, but they're thriving in Youth Build. Or we can go a few blocks away, Building 21. Brand new school that's teaching kids how to explore their passion and careers and letting them actually advance their learning at their own pace, as opposed to saying you can only be in 9th grade. These kids are actually designing projects that are interconnected and college level that are brilliant, grounded in the career areas that they're most passionate about. Those kids want to come to school. So the brilliance is fabulous. But we don't hear about that. So the big idea is something very simple. First of all, you have to really imagine a group of young people and keep them at the center. The second, which is very easy, so I have 3 big ideas, and I just want to say one thing before I share them with you. They're free. Yeah, you never heard that in relation to the school district, right? Free! They cost no money. The first, very simply, we have to speak into existence that we deserve a high-quality public education system. We have to demand it. It is no longer an option. If we don't speak hope and aspiration and love into these schools, guess what? They will become what they are. The second thing, which is a big thing, folks, adults, you must change your behavior. It all starts with us. Children are nothing more than the victims of the circumstance that we, the adults, create. We say their schools are bad, so they're bad. So you have to stop saying it. You have to look at each and every one of these young people for the possibilities that they are. And the last thing is you have to persevere. These changes will take years. You cannot quit. We have to stop reforming and start re-engineering. We have to start rebuilding the different pieces of our system. And the answer is in this room. The answer isn't those of us who happen to toil away every day on behalf of children. The answer is amongst the community. We have to ask different questions and be curious. And so very simply, have an aspiration. Start talking positive about our children and about our district. We are on a path to creating a best-in-class school system. That's our job. Adults, change your behavior. And third, don't quit. You cannot give up at all. It is really apropos to have this conversation on this stage in this moment. This is the same stage that Martin Luther King stood on and talked about issues of justice to motivate an entire country around a movement. I, as an African-American woman, am a direct recipient of that movement. Had it not been for the Civil Rights Act or the Voter Rights Act or Brown versus Board of Education, I would not be standing here and not have had the privilege to earn multiple degrees. So how dare I, as I ask the question why, not be willing to have the same sacrifice as our elders had? How dare you? So here's the big charge. Next time you see a young person, look at them for their possibilities and not for their deficits. And then ask yourself the question, what am I doing to help this young person? And that can be as simple as have a positive word to say. And dream for them the dreams that they need in order to move them beyond. Every child, when they're born, their mother has a dream for them. In my household, my mother's dream was manifested on a wall. As a single parent who raised 3 kids, one of whom was special needs, she created this wall in our house where every little certificate and degree and plaque went up on that wall. And every time she got passed over for a promotion or she didn't have enough money, she'd go stand in front of that wall with her hands behind it, rocking back and forth very slowly, and just say, this is a job well done. Every mother deserves a wall to celebrate her child's accomplishments educationally. And every child deserves this moment. Peace and blessings.